The following episode of Extra Mythology deals with the topic of sexual assault. Viewer discretion is advised. Myths are not stories that are untrue. Rather, they are tales that don't fit neatly into the historical record, which serve as a foundation to a culture. In ancient Greece long ago, there was a magnificent pool unlike any other. Its waters were clear and cool, its banks soft and grassy, and no fish or reeds disturbed its peaceful surface. But beyond its beauty, it was also enchanted, and any person who bathed in it would emerge sexually transformed. Thanks so much to Skillshare for believing in the transformative power of mythology. Real quick before we start, from our campfire to yours, we want to wish you all a beautiful, vibrant, and happy Pride, full of love, support, and rainbows, however you choose to celebrate. And while we can't party with you IRL, we're glad we can celebrate the best way we know how, sharing stories. So without further ado, on to the myth. The magic pool we spoke of earlier was actually the home to an unusual water nymph named Salmachus. Now, while other nymphs partied and hunted with Artemis all day, Salmachus had way more important things to attend to. Namely, herself. She spent all hours of the day and night bathing her lovely limbs in her perfect pool, picking fragrant flowers, dressing her beautiful hair, lounging on the grassy banks, or just checking out her amazing outfits in the pool's glassy reflection. Meanwhile, up on Olympus, the gods were doing god stuff. Sexy god stuff. You see, Aphrodite, feminine goddess of sex, love, and desire, had recently fallen hard for Hermes, the hyper-masculine god of, among other things, luck, wealth, and fertility. It was quite literally a match made in heaven. The two made love, and from that union, Aphrodite gave birth to a son named after both his parents, Hermaphroditus. However, not really being the parenting type that was more of a Hera thing, Aphrodite made the A-plus parenting move of leaving Hermaphroditus to be raised by the nymphs of the mountain caves. As Hermaphroditus came of age, he took on all of the desirable traits from both of his parents, both physically and socially. From Aphrodite, he inherited an otherworldly grace. He moved like a dancer, his laugh was like music, and he charmed all who encountered him. And from Hermes, he was graced with an athletic body, an adventurous spirit, and an alluring self-confidence. Also, much like his parents, he could not be contained for long. And once he'd grown into a young man, he decided to leave the caves and set out on an adventure to explore the world. For many weeks, he wandered the land. He climbed trees and mountains, explored the rural farming towns and vineyards that dotted the landscape, and navigated bustling cities and ports filled with people, languages, sights, and smells, the likes of which he had never seen before. Though after many weeks of wandering, he was a little worse for wear. He was covered in dust from the road, his feet ached from walking, and he was a bit of a sweaty, exhausted, smelly mess. And just when he felt he could go no further, he came across Salmachus's pool. Oh, the waters were just so enticing. He'd had to stop and refresh himself. But Hermaphroditus was not the only thirsty deity present. For when Salmachus laid eyes on Hermaphroditus, she was overcome with a burning desire the likes of which she had never known. All these years, she had loved only idleness and her looks, but now a frenzied passion awoke in her. So as Hermaphroditus dipped his toes in the cool water, Salmachus took a moment for a quick fit check, then approached her new obsession, though not really in an appropriate way. She began catcalling him, delivering compliments and pickup lines in equal measure. Then, in the ultimate U-Haul moment, at the end of her speech, she proposed to him, begging that they be married immediately. Justifiably taken a bit back, Hermaphroditus didn't know what to say, and he could only blush and stutter. At this, Salmachus only pleaded more strongly, forcibly throwing her arms around him and trying to kiss his cheek. It was at this point that Hermaphroditus, being profoundly uncomfortable with this personal violation, pushed her off of him, saying that if she didn't stop, he would leave. Fearful of this, she acquiesced and told him she would go away and leave him to have the place all to himself. But she didn't go far. And in another profoundly creepy move, she simply lurked nearby in the dense river grass, watching him. Now, Hermaphroditus didn't notice this, and when he felt sure that Salmachus was truly gone, he stripped off his clothes and dove headfirst into the pool. And it was this, apparently, that was too much for Salmachus to bear, and she longed to be one with him in a violent, frenzied passion. "He's mine!" she cried as she cast her own clothes aside and dove into the pool, grabbing Hermaphroditus in her arms. She grappled and groped him, trying to plant kisses on him as he struggled to get away. But the more he fought to escape, the more she clung to him, like ivy suffocating a tree, or a squid engulfing its prey in the depths of the sea. And as she strained to contain him, their bodies seemed almost as one. And finally, she shouted a prayer to the gods that they might never separate, but be together until the end of time. A prayer the gods sadly answered. When Hermaphroditus emerged from the pool, he saw in the reflective waters that his body had changed. His limbs had softened, and his voice lifted in cadence. He now had breasts and 2 sets of genitals. For the bodies of Salmachus and Hermaphroditus had merged into one, and so they stayed forevermore. And it's said that anyone who sets foot into the pool of Salmachus will be transformed in the same way. Now Ovid, the author of this story, seemed to have his own personal goals in presenting masculinity as ensnared and lessened by femininity, assaulted by it even. And he presented Hermaphroditus as a tragic figure, foreshadowing how trans and intersex people are often depicted in today's art and media. But even back then, that was only part of the story. Hermaphroditus himself was an important deity of luck, fertility, and the moon, and had an entire group of worship built around him. He was actively celebrated, often with parties and gender bending. And while Ovid's less poetic successors today may still paint intersex people as rare and regrettable, and trans people as tragic and unnatural, intersex and trans folks have begun to tell their own stories, and have reclaimed Hermaphroditus as an important symbol. A divine being, showing us yet again that queer people have been around from the beginning of civilization. So this Pride, we raise a marshmallow and send our love to our intersex friends, and everyone else in, under, or around the rainbow flag. Stay fabulous, everyone. Once again, thanks so much to Skillshare for believing in the importance of today's mythological tale and helping us continue our quest of lifelong learning. For the uninitiated, Skillshare is an online learning community featuring thousands of inspiring classes for creative and curious people on topics including illustration, design, photography, video, freelancing, and just too many to list all of them. Lately, I've been digging into the class Storytelling 101, Character, Conflict, Context, and Craft by Daniel Jose Older, because I'm always on the lookout for new ways to tell engaging stories. Also, since it's been a minute since we've updated the EC merch shop, I checked out Designing Great Stuff from Aaron Draplin, where I snagged some super helpful tips to make some upcoming items really pop. And then to round out my recent edutainment curriculum, I got lost in song with Claire Dove's Top Lining 101, Melody and Lyrics in Songwriting. Because as some of you may know by now, I've got a habit of writing parody tracks, and I've got some future ideas that I really wanted to rock. Plus, I love how Skillshare never really rests on its laurels, putting out new premium classes ad-free all the time, so there's always something awesome and unexpected you'll love learning about, all for under $10 a month. And speaking of the unexpected, this deal actually gets even better because the first 1,000 of you fine folks that click the link in the description below will get a 1-month free trial of Skillshare. So you can learn something today that you didn't know yesterday, all while saving some cash and supporting EC at the same time. So thanks for that. A huge thanks to Ahmed Ziad Turk, Alicia Bramble, Casey Muscha, Dominic Valenciana, Joseph Blame, Kyle Murgatroyd, and O'Reels1 for being our legendary patrons.